Hello, dear lovely audience. Welcome back to another Bravo TV new recap. Everyone, I know you'll have been waiting for this. Thank you guys so much for your patience. Adriana de Moura explained the defining moment that broke her friendship with longtime BFF Julia Lemegova during the Real Housewives of Miami after show. Tired of scrolling? Click here to bump BravoTV.com's latest news to the top of your search results. Adriana de Moura and Julia Lemegova were self-declared BFFs during Season 4 of The Real Housewives of Miami, to the point they even sealed their commitment with the Friendgagement, a Housewives franchise first. But 3 seasons later, the two are very much at odds. Now, Adriana is revealing the exact moment that her friendship really came to an end with Julia during The Real Housewives of Miami after show. The straw that broke the camel's back? The fact that, at Gertie's event, when Marisol Patton led the Mean Girl conga line out of the room, "I refuse to follow the Mean Girl conga line because I'm not a follower," Adriana explained, referencing the moments after Gertie Abrera exposed Julia's texts during a party in Season 7, Episode 7. "I'm never going to be that girl. I stood in my truth." Adriana pointed out that Julia expected her support, but she decided not to give it. "Julia felt like she did not need to give me her full loyalty, blind loyalty, but when the time came, she expected me to give my full loyalty," Adriana said to describe their major fracture. How Adriana de Moura and Julia Lemegova's Art Basel fight deep in their feud. Although Julia and Adriana were on the outs heading into Season 7, Episode 16, Julia hoped that Larsa Pippen and Lisa Hochstein putting their differences aside might inspire Adriana to do the same with her. "You know how much I love Adriana, but do you know how much I miss her and I hugging each other?" she confided to Larsa and Lisa during Adriana's Art Basel party. That's when Larsa and Lisa jumped in to tell Adriana she was missed by Julia. Related, Andy Cohen teases a huge bombshell at the Real Housewives of Miami Season 7 reunion. But any warm feelings between Adriana and Julia were quickly extinguished when Adriana learned Kiki Barth was the one who wrote 59 in math equations on her birthday cake and felt as though Julia was justifying the behavior. "I don't think Kiki did it in a mean way," Julia insisted in the September 18th episode, but added she was not defending Kiki. During their argument, Julia also pointed out that Adriana hurled insults at Marisol on yachts during Episode 8. Adriana retorted, "And you ask me why I'm not close to you anymore. It's because you're now defending Marisol and Kiki." In her confessional interview, she added, "My best friend Julia always sides with people that I'm having a problem with. She's always on my enemy's side. Always." But Julia had a different take on their closeness. "Oh my God. You know what? Maybe I'm not so close to you because you're pushing me away," she told Adriana at the party and later added, "It's so difficult to be around you. You're not fun anymore. You're so negative sometimes." Adriana shared during the after show why she felt betrayed by Julia. "That is just like, really? This is my best friend. That is the first to attack me and point out things that nobody else is pointing out," she said. "With a friend like that, who needs an enemy?" Julia explained to Kiki during the after show how her fight with Adriana escalated. "She went off on me, being really, really upset, saying I don't have her back." A look back at Julia Lemegova and Adriana de Moura's RHOM friendship. In case you need a refresher, Julia and Adriana were once one of the closest duos on Bravo. "We have something that real friends do. We have each other and we have each other's backs," Julia told The Daily Dish in February 2022. "So we are ready for anything, good things, bad things, fights, or laughing. Whatever you give us, we are ready for it." Related, here's how Martina Navratilova really feels about wife Julia Lemegova's friendship with Adriana de Moura. But the cracks in Adriana and Julia's friendship began to show in Season 7, when Julia didn't tell her personally that she was adopting 2 young boys, but instead broke the news on a group Zoom call. "There has been some distancing between us because she started to get closer to Marisol and Alexia Nepola," Adriana explained. Another turning point came when Adriana was shocked to find out that Julia agreed to take a seat on Stephanie Shoji's private plane to Spain without her. "I'm sorry, Adriana, but I don't think me accepting that invitation makes me a bad friend," Julia said in her confessional. Don't miss Julia sharing more in an exclusive interview with The Daily Dish on her farm life with Martina. Adriana and Julia. Friendship in the spotlight. The Real Housewives of Miami, RHOM, has given us many friendships and rivalries, but few stung quite like the one between Adriana de Moura and Julia Lemigova. For years, their relationship seemed strong, forged in history and mutual loyalty. Adriana, a veteran of RHOM, was one of the people who brought Julia into the fold. They were ride or die. In the language of reality TV, a friendship coasted on affection, shared history, trust, or at least an image thereof. But somewhere along the way, the dynamics began to shift. Trust was tested, unspoken expectations left unmet, and small incidents compounded until one particular moment became the straw that broke the camel's back. Adriana has now revealed what that moment was. It's both dramatic and instructive, showing how fragile even deep friendships can be when interpersonal boundaries, trust, and communication break down. The build-up, warning signs, and growing tension. 1. Friends growing apart, in public and private. Julia Lemigova joined RHOM in Season 4, after the show's hiatus, introduced by Adriana. From the start, they had what many saw as a close bond. Adriana sort of took Julia under her wing, helping her find a foothold in the social dynamics. But as newer cast members entered, as group alliances shifted, as they always do in this environment, things began to fray. Some moments of tension appeared when Julia was seen growing closer to other cast members, or when Adriana felt Julia was not being fully loyal. There were small slights, disagreements, and implicit criticisms. 2. Shadow of betrayal. Not being trusted, not being informed. Julia has spoken publicly about warnings she had received from people not to trust certain individuals, yet she resisted that advice, believing in her own judgment. In contrast, Adriana has indicated she felt Julia was flitting between alliances, prioritizing newer friendships over old ones, or at least failing to clearly side with her in moments of drama involving other cast members. For instance, when Alexia Nepola and Marisol Patton were involved in tensions, Julia sided more with them or seemed to sympathize with them in ways Adriana interpreted as betrayals. 3. The glass of water incident. One key event that's been discussed repeatedly as a turning point is when Julia reportedly threw a glass of water on Gertie Abrera at Marisol's 10th wedding celebration. Importantly, Adriana was not there. She says she was asked to take a position, even though she wasn't present. That act of being expected to side with someone in a conflict she hadn't witnessed or had incomplete information about seems to have deeply hurt her. It marked, she says, the moment when she realized the trust line had shifted too far. The straw that broke the camel's back. Here is what Adriana has identified as the moment. The straw that turned unease and tension into a nearly irreparable wound. The straw that broke the camel's back was what happened when I wasn't there, when Julia threw the glass of water on Gertie at Marisol's 10th wedding celebration that I wasn't invited to. I was asked to have a position and I wasn't present. I don't like making very decisive opinions based on something that I wasn't there for. I was trying to be friends with both of them, and I was trying to bring them together. Several things converge in that single moment. Absence. Adriana was not present. That means any perspective or take she might have had would have to be constructed secondhand, through what others told her, edited footage, or snippets. Being forced to choose. Even though she wasn't there, people expected her to take a position. Implicitly, if not explicitly, there was pressure to pick a side, Julia's or Marisol's or Gertie's. Duplicity or perceived disloyalty. Adriana felt she was trying, unsuccessfully, to mediate, to maintain connection with all involved parties. The idea that Julia would act in a controversial way and then expect Adriana to respond, or be complicit, or support her, felt unfair because Adriana was being held to standards of loyalty she couldn't measure up to, not through action, but through silence or absence. This combination, pressure, absence, expectation, perceived betrayal, became the moment where Adriana decided the friendship could not continue in the same way. It wasn't just one glass, but the meaning attached to it, the network of expectations, loyalties, and perceptions, that made it more than just a moment of drama. Julia's perspective and the aftermath. Julia has also spoken publicly. The breakdown, she says, was sad and disturbing. Some of her reflections include: she finally feels like she might have been correct to heed earlier warnings from people about trusting certain people. Maybe she ignored advice that had value. She acknowledges that she knows some facts, but doesn't fully understand Adriana's motivations. There's a mystery for her in what exactly prompted Adriana to come directly at her, on camera, in ways that felt confronting. Julia does not foresee reconciliation in the near future. She feels that what is done, that sometimes friendships cannot survive being under that kind of scrutiny and hurt. What this conflict reveals. Beyond the gossip and the drama, the de Moura-Lemegova conflict reveals something deeper about interpersonal friendship, public life, trust, loyalty, and what happens when private relationships are aired publicly. A. The challenge of friendship under public scrutiny. When you are on a reality TV show, your relationships are not only personal, they are mediated, edited, and broadcast. Small incidents can be amplified. Intentions are interpreted through selective footage. Expectations of loyalty become magnified. Slights that in a private friendship might be forgotten or forgiven become shape-shifting markers in the public narrative. Adriana's feeling that she was asked to side with someone for whom she didn't have full knowledge reflects how, in such an environment, people often feel judged not for what they did, but for what others say about them, and what their friends are supposed to do. This leads to resentment when the public or co-cast members expect allegiance, even when the person being asked was not in the moment. B. Trust, expectations, and what we owe friends. Every friendship includes unspoken contracts, expectations of honesty, not betraying confidences, standing up in certain circumstances. But in many friendships, those contracts are implicit, and people don't always agree on the terms. Adriana seems to have believed that because she was not present for the incident, she should not be held to account, and certainly should not be pressured to choose a side, especially when she felt she was trying to maintain relationships with all involved parties. Moreover, when someone close to you does something you view as wrong, but that person expects you to support them, this can feel like betrayal, even if they themselves see nothing wrong. The gap between how Julia saw the glass of water incident and how Adriana saw it, especially her absence, became a gap too wide to bridge. C. The weight of silence versus speaking out. Adriana's statement suggests she was trying to bring them together, rather than escalate conflict. Silence or staying neutral can be honorable, but can also be misinterpreted. In the RHOM environment, neutrality does not always protect. Often it's seen as betrayal or weakness. Speaking truth, or being seen speaking truth, can cost a relationship, but silence can damage respect, too. For Adriana, silence in that incident felt forced. Speaking up afterwards possibly felt like defending integrity. D. The mystery person and the hidden motivations. Julia has described Adriana as mysterious, someone you never really know what to expect from. That plays into this conflict. When there is a lack of transparency, the unknown becomes fertile territory for suspicion. It is possible that Adriana's feelings had been accumulating, past slights, perceived shifting loyalties, undercurrents of jealousy, disappointment. By the time the water glass incident happened, those undercurrents had built up so much that this moment tipped her over. As Julia says, "You will uncover things about our relationship just as I will." The emotional landscape. Let's try to imagine what Adriana may have felt in the lead-up, during, and after this incident. Frustration. Maybe having brought Julia into the group, Adriana felt responsible for Julia's integrations, alliances, and was hurt when she saw Julia aligning with others in ways that felt like turning away. Isolation. Being asked to take a side in something she did not witness, to be judged for something she didn't see, to carry the burden of loyalty without information. Anger. Not just at Julia for the water incident, but at the expectation that Adriana would automatically defend or support her regardless of what Julia did, even when Adriana felt blindsided. Disappointment. That someone she believed in, someone she considered close, would act in a way that made Adriana feel misunderstood, used, or misrepresented. Sadness, because friendships of long standing are hard to sever. When public life intrudes, pain is magnified by the knowledge that others are watching, speculating. Relief, perhaps. Once she decides that this moment is the breaking point, there may be relief that she no longer has to walk on eggshells, to perform loyalty on camera, to feel torn between alliances. For Julia, too, there would be complex feelings. Confusion. Why has Adriana turned so sharply? What was she hoping for? Which incidents mattered most? Regret. Possibly wishing that small gestures could have changed the course before things exploded. Defensiveness. She may feel that people expect her to behave a certain way with Adriana, and when she does not, she is deemed disloyal. Loss. A long-time friendship is being dissolved, not just in private, but in view of an audience. Could it have been prevented? Reflection on what might have saved their friendship, or altered its trajectory, is instructive, both in terms of friendship generally and in reality TV backdrop specifically. Communication before the breaking point. If Adriana had expressed earlier that she felt uncomfortable being asked to respond to events she hadn't seen, that she felt misaligned loyalty, that she believed Julia was drifting. Sometimes deep friendships avoid confrontation, but confrontation, done carefully, might have diffused tensions before they hardened. Clarity of expectations. When friends are in a public setting, with cameras and cast structure, the expectations are different. Establishing what loyalty looks like to both people, what private boundaries are, what is okay to be asked of one another in terms of public support could help manage conflict. Empathy and listening. Julia might have listened to Adriana's earlier concerns, recognized the pressures Adriana felt. Adriana might also have recognized that Julia had her own pressures, expectations from other cast members, social alliances, etc. A mutual recognition that each person is being pulled in different directions could have led to compromise. Neutrality, without judgment. Adriana's effort to remain neutral, to be friends with all involved, to not be drawn unfairly into conflict. If that had been respected, maybe she would not have felt pressured. If Julia had refrained from expecting loyalty or support in incidents Adriana did not witness, that might have eased the strain. Forgiveness and repair. After the water incident, there might have been opportunity for apology, clear expression of remorse, acknowledgement of hurt. Publicly or privately, but acknowledgement of ambiguous perceptions. Setting boundaries. If Adriana recognized that being asked to take positions in conflicts she didn't witness was unfair, setting boundary. If I'm not there, I can't comment. If I need more information, I need it, could help. Julia might have recognized that asking for such support is understandable, but needs to be earned through transparency. What it means for reality TV friendships. This friendship rift isn't just about two people, it's symptomatic of what reality TV does to friendship. Blurred private versus public. What is said off-camera, whispers, non-broadcast conversations are often the real friendship, but what is broadcast becomes the statement of record. Memory editing, selection of scenes can skew perceptions and so hurt. Conflict as currency. In many reality shows, conflict drives screen time, interest, storyline. There is both internal, personal emotion and external, ratings, producers, narratives, pressure to have moments of drama. Friendships are vulnerable to becoming theatrical. Reciprocal loyalty under microscrutiny. Everyone expects loyalty, but few know how to fully give it when loyalties clash. When a friend is in conflict with someone else, what do we owe? How much can you withhold support until you have all the facts? Reality TV often forces that choice. Trust is fragile. Especially when history is long and reputation strong, a single event can feel like betrayal, but often it is the accumulation of small things. When people gloss over or minimize earlier grievances, the anger at the last straw is fanned by all past wounds. A closer look, moment by moment. To understand how the straw came to be, it helps to walk through a reconstructed timeline of key moments. Incident, what happened / what was felt impact on trust / relation, initial friendship and mentorship. Adriana helps Julia enter RHOM, offers guidance. Both seem solid, strong foundation, expectations of mutual loyalty and support. Shifting alliances. Julia becomes more integrated with other RHOM cast members. Alliances shift. Adriana sees her close with Alexia. Marisol begins to feel less centered in Julia's loyalty. Seeds of doubt. Adriana feels sidelined in some interactions. Julia maybe feels torn or balancing. Tension around loyalty. Situations where Adriana expects Julia to support her, but feels Julia doesn't or is silent. For example, in episodes or dinners where comments about Alexia are made, or when Adriana feels Julia is prioritizing others. Gradual erosion of faith. If your friend is not clearly loyal in small things, you begin to worry about larger ones. The water glass incident at Marisol's 10th wedding. Julia throws a glass of water at Gertie. Adriana is not present, but is asked to take a position. Yes or no. Support or condemnation. This is the breaking point. Absence plus expectation plus public pressure plus betrayal all rolled together. The perceived injustice of asking someone to take sides when they didn't even see what happened. Aftermath. Confrontation. Adriana confronts Julia, on camera, telling her she sees Julia for who she is, that she'll treat her how she is treated. Julia is caught off guard. The relationship is then described by Julia as sad and disturbing. Public statements are made. What's done is done. The friendship fractures publicly. Healing is unlikely without major repair. Trust has been damaged not just by the incident, but by what both perceive the other to have expected and how they communicated or didn't. How Adriana framed it. Her own voice. Adriana's revelation about the straw is not just about pointing out a grievance, but about reclaiming agency. She is saying, I was not there. Let that fact be central. From that absence, no one should have expected me to decide. I wanted neutrality/peace. She was trying to mediate, to maintain friendships on all sides. This is a position many people try to occupy in friend groups. Peacemaker, not always appreciated. I feel hurt by expectations. That implicit or explicit expectations were placed on her to merely pick a side, to perform loyalty, regardless of fairness or knowledge. I believe the public drama obscured earlier signs. She implies that this moment was not sprung from nothing, but was the result of growing distance, accumulated disappointments, unbalanced expectations. Adriana, as she frames it, is not asking for forgiveness, publicly at least, but recognition. Recognition that something unfair was asked of her, that her feelings were valid, that friendship is not only what is broadcast or performed. Julia's reflections, and what she knows/doesn't know. From what Julia has said, she knows some of what went wrong, but not everything. She seems to indicate that she was surprised by how Adriana approached confrontation directly, especially on camera. There's a sense that she did not expect Adriana to air grievances in that way. She feels hurt, too, that someone close would move from trust to confrontation publicly. The sad and disturbing label suggests feeling that the end of friendship was not just a disappointment, but an upsetting betrayal of what she believed they had. Julia is processing whether earlier warnings or distrusts by others were valid, which suggests she is reflecting, trying to understand the discrepancy between appearance and reality, where they stand now and what might be next. As of present disclosures, reconciliation seems unlikely, at least in the near future. Julia has said, what's done is done. Their conflict is part of RHOM's Season 7 storyline, so what is aired and how they present their sides will matter for public perception. The audience is aware. Viewers are being shown the moments of tension. Social media chatter has picked up. Reality TV stakes are high. How each one behaves now, publicly, may define whether there's any possibility of repair. Adriana has suggested she feels drained, emotionally taxed from having to live under these conflicts and expectations. That emotional cost itself may limit her desire to try to rebuild unless Julia does so in a way that acknowledges her hurt. Broader lessons: friendship, boundaries, and identity. In friendships, especially long ones, identity, history, loyalty bind people deeply. But identity also shifts. When people change, expectations built in earlier years may no longer align with how each now behaves or what each now values. But lingering expectations count for a lot. Here are some takeaways. Absence does not equal guilt, but assumptions hurt. When you're not present for something that matters, you risk having others' stories define you. And when expected to pick a side, the pressure is enormous. Friendships require space for "I don't know," because I wasn't there, for "I may take time to understand" before choosing. Speak up early, rather than letting resentment build. Small unvoiced disappointments can fester into large wounds. A look overlooked, a question unasked, a loyalty felt but unexpressed. Over time, they aggregate. Adriana's feelings had likely built gradually. By the time of the incident, the weight was heavy. Recognize public versus private friend lines.